As the sun dropped, the views were incredible. Unfortunately, it couldn't last. I had returned to the quiet pool of local trails, spending months exploring familiar paths and adding mile after mile. Camping itself wasn't new to me. By then, I'd spent over 100 nights outdoors. Backpacking, however, the merging of hiking and camping, was still unfamiliar, and I immersed myself in learning about it through hundreds of YouTube videos, covering topics from ultralight gear to dehydrated meals. Following my first sampling of overnight backpacking trips, I felt ready to aim higher, setting my sights on my first thru-hike. The challenge would be significant, but the potential reward was a renewed sense of accomplishment during an uncertain time in my life. Motivated, anxious, and eager to begin, I arrived mid-morning at the Foothills Trail, amped and ready to step onto mile one of what would become 76 miles of meandering terrain, scenic views, and cozy nights along the trail. I had put in the work, made the effort, and educated myself thoroughly to prepare for any misstep or obstacle I might face along the way. There was no conceivable way I could fail. Until I did. In contrast to a large number of Foothills Trail thru hikers, I started my trip at the eastern terminus, hiking westbound from Table Rock State Park. My goal for the day was to push hard and with no itinerary, just grind it out and stop when the right site presented itself. It was mid-September, hot and humid. A wiser man might have read the warning signs and waited for autumn. Hindsight, of course, makes that easy to say. Now, it was time to set out and explore 76 miles of untraveled trail, come hell or high water. Just 1 mile in, I felt a surge of pride as sweat formed on my brow. After months of practice, day hikes, preparation, and planning, I had finally begun to thru-hike a trail that I'd heard about since I was a boy. Mile 2 shifted gears and pushed me further upward. I knew to expect the climb. I took a quick break to make adjustments to my backpack and take in some water. Farther along the trail, I could feel my pack straining my back and shoulders. I stopped to adjust every strap I could, hoping to relieve the pressure. Feeling like I'd made a difference, I pressed on, only to realize a quarter mile later that the problem remained. By then, I'd convinced myself the issue I was facing wasn't with the backpack itself, but with its contents. I began to worry I had packed too much or had improperly balanced my gear inside. I unfastened my pack in a moment of desperation. Equal parts hubris and poor judgment, I flung a half pound of tortillas meant for tuna sandwiches into the woods, like little frisbees. I needed any way gone, and consumables were the only disposable option. Sparing the remainder of my protein and calorie-rich food, I picked up and moved forward, ever upward. The day cooked on. The weight on my back, shoulders, and hips felt unchanged. Every step hurt in sequence, and I desperately needed a working solution. I had planned to collect and filter water along the way, estimating I'd encounter a stream or water source every mile or two. Somewhat hesitant in that plan, and having already passed several sources for that day, I dumped a liter of backup water. The decision instantly cut about 2 pounds from my pack. Even so, I fought through the strain of the weight on my body and steadily increasing grade of the trail. I pushed hard, rested, and pushed again, over and over, until I reached my first scenic payoff, Bald Knob Viewpoint. After 4 rough miles and 2,000 feet of intense and, at times, technical elevation gain, I was spent. Stripping off my pack made my body feel weightless. As the sun dropped, the views were incredible. Unfortunately, it couldn't last. With my willpower fading and my water supply running low, I gathered myself and moved on, eager to find a valid source of water. With the highest point of the day behind me, the trail eased into a steady descent, carrying me farther down and out of Table Rock State Park. Relieved, but not without a sore back and shoulders, the trail finally leveled off. I felt a renewed sense of energy and encouragement. Then my water ran out. I needed to find a stream, and fast. Even beneath the forest canopy, the air was thick and stifling. My cotton shirt was soaked through with sweat. As the trail descended again, I caught sight of what looked like a sizable and very welcome stream through the trees. I made my way carefully down a brief switchback, prepared to replenish my water, and instead found disappointment. The stream I'd hoped for was bone dry, offering nothing at all. In a twist of cruel irony, a steel cable had been installed to help hikers safely cross what would normally be a precarious water crossing. I could only laugh as I continued, passing through without the slightest risk of slipping. I pushed farther along the mountainside until I found an unmarked, yet open and workable campsite. My head throbbed. I'd hoped for a longer day on the trail, but my body had other plans. 6 miles into day 1, and with 70 miles still ahead of me, I was spent. Discouraged, yet relieved to be free of nearly 30 pounds of pack weight, I set up my small home for the night. I then turned my focus back to finding water, not just to drink, but to prepare my evening meal. With no options behind me and hesitant to climb farther up the trail, I took a chance on a nearby access path. By sheer luck, I found a small trickle of a stream not far below. After several minutes of effort, I collected and filtered 2 much-needed liters of water. With daylight fading and my water supply restored, I cooked my meal and turned in for the night. The next morning, I woke poorly rested, aching and warmed by the rising sun. Still groggy, I broke down camp and mentally prepared for day 2, hoping the trail ahead would be more forgiving. As temperatures rose further and the trail climbed towards Sassafras Mountain, the highest point in South Carolina, I realized there would be no relief. Certain sections once again pushed my endurance to its limits. My muscles ached down to the bone. In my haste to camp, I'd failed to collect water again when I had the chance. Only a couple miles into day 2, my supply was again empty. Still, I continued to push upward, one over-encumbered and aching step at a time. Wandering farther up along the trail, I found a small trickle of fresh mountain water dripping from moss in a shaded switchback. I spent what must have been a half hour collecting and sipping water, one drop at a time. It was there that I paused to reflect on the challenges of the day before, the day unfolding, and the days still ahead. I began to worry that the pain might not let up, and that finding reliable water sources along for the rest of the trail would continue to be a struggle. The hike was supposed to define me as a backpacker, not wear me down. With only a meager half-liter of water collected, I realized what needed to be done to remain safe. I used my satellite messenger to contact my wife, who was at home nearly 50 miles away. I begrudgingly declared defeat, there only 10% into my 76-mile through hike, and requested a bailout at a roadside trail access atop Sassafras Mountain. I didn't want to fail, but I knew I was making the right decision for my health and safety. Feeling a sense that my discomfort would soon be at an end, I pushed up through the final few miles of my closing journey. I approached the summit of Sassafras Mountain midday and quickly took refuge in the shade of the lookout tower, exhausted and defeated. So what did I learn from all this? Well, let's start with a variable outside of my control: weather. It was mid-September, humid with daytime temperatures climbing into the mid-90s. And it wasn't just hot. The area had already entered an official drought. In hindsight, dumping that extra water seemed even more boneheaded than it did at the time. Next, my pack weight was way too outside of my comfort level, pushing around 30 pounds, in all likelihood, improperly packed in balance. I hadn't just packed my fears, I packed all of my fears, spanning extra items I'd likely never use, to gear and comfort items that functionally had no purpose. Lastly, I could have spared myself the brutal climb on day 1 by starting my through hike at the Western Trailhead in Oconee State Park, where gently grades and softer elevation gains would have eased me into the long hike. Despite the pain and anguish that came with it, I'm thankful to have challenged and overpowered my ego. Had I not, I may have ventured too far into the wilderness for an easy bailout, or worse, succumbed to the heat, drought conditions, or exhaustion. After some time and added experience, I proudly completed the entirety of the trail in 2025, even revisiting and rehiking certain sections multiple times along the way. In the end, that failure sharpened my ability to recognize and manage unnecessary risk, understanding when to conserve, when to advance, and when to accept failure with poise. It humbled me early, and while the pain faded, the lesson in self-awareness and foresight endured. And from that, I never truly failed.